Hello everybody, welcome to Toyah Day. It's Toyah at home. It's so good to see you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your extraordinary questions today. They are so good and I can't wait to answer them. Now I can't find Robert. I've been waiting and hanging around to jump out on him and I think he knows what's coming. So he's just disappeared. He's hiding. He's probably gone to a coffee shop with his Financial Times or something. So we're going to start today with a song off In the Court of the Crimson Queen, and it's Telepathic Lover, which I wrote with Simon Darlow. Now, the interesting thing about Telepathic Lover is the riff actually started its life around 2007 when Simon and I started writing Latex Messiah. And we just didn't have time to go back to this riff. And eventually, I think about 2018, I said to Simon, we've got this great riff, we've not done anything with it. We knew it was called Telepathic Lover, and we knew it was about the fact that you communicate with people you can't be with, that communication is always there, i.e. you're missing the person you love, you're desiring the person you love, so they are your telepathic lover. And that is how the origin of the song came, which is very apt for the fact that Robert and I did spend so much time apart when we're both touring musicians. Obviously in lockdown, we're getting used to each other. So Simon and I finally finished this song, I think around 2018. I know that it was released for one of my birthdays, so I think it might have been my 60th birthday. So it's really lovely to bring this to you today. This is Telepathic Lover. Enjoy! Be my lover. What you preach. I want you, I need you, you're never out of reach. A million miles dividing you and me. I miss you. Lover there. And wasn't the guitarist just the best? So your questions this week are so good. They are so wonderful and they excited me so much. Penny, you asked, do I have any particularly fond memories of presenting Look Here, which was at Pebble Mill, and it was an arts programme that had rock music on it. Well, I started at Look Here when I went up to Birmingham to promote the film Jubilee, and I was interviewed about playing Mad in Jubilee. And then a week later, I get a call from Roger Castles, the legendary producer who went on to do the fashion show, and he said, would I like to come and be a presenter on Look Here? And I thought, wow, that's such a great thing, because basically I was unemployed and I was working in a band and we were earning, what, 30 quid a week. So I turned up the following week as a presenter on Look Here, and I was a bit of an art critic, and I was very, very naive because they wrote my scripts for me and I was blisteringly critical and possibly unkind towards shows that they'd seen and didn't like. It seemed that there was very little that I was allowed to like, as I had this kind of presenter critic job. So eventually they allowed me to be me and to be less kind of critical and more embracing of the art community. And I really loved doing that show. It was the clothes show that Roger Castles went on to invent and create. But apparently Duran have forgotten that they had their first ever TV appearance on Look Here, and it was Planet Earth. And I can remember it was about 1980 and we were all incredibly excited that these beautiful boys were going to come on, and everyone knew they were going to be big stars. But at the same time, they were very sweet and very humble. And we just loved having them on the show, and they performed Planet Earth, and I think Dexys were on the same show, and a band called King from Coventry were on. So I absolutely adored doing Look Here. And I think one of my happiest memories is in 81, when by this time I was a huge star, and I was invited back to present the very last Look Here. And I was driven into the studio at Pebble Mill on the back of a scooter with lots of kind of scooter riders around me, and the production just got bigger and bigger and bigger the more famous I became. So it was a very happy time, and also it was literally 1 mile away from my family home. So Look Here was always a joy to work on, and Chris Phibbs, my co-presenter, went on to create The Tube. So lovely, lovely kind of provenance there and great history. So Penny, thank you for that question. Now, Julie Wheeler, you ask, back in the 80s, I rode a horse around Liberty's shop. I was asked if I had any fantasy, and I said, yeah, I want to ride a white horse around Liberty's department store off Regent Street. And Julie, you also ask, is that the horse from the video Thunder in the Mountains and Brave New World? No, completely different horses for all of them. In fact, Thunder in the Mountains was a pony that looked like a horse next to me, and Brave New World was a white stallion that had a mind of its own. So that was just so exciting, and really all I wanted to do was to get into the chocolate department at Liberty's after the shop had closed, and just kind of stuff my face with chocolate, but it was locked. And it was really beautiful because we filmed that between about 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. and I had this white horse that I rode around the shop, and I just wanted to do something utterly obscure, and that was it. But the whole of the shop was locked up. We couldn't go and sneak in anywhere. We couldn't sneak into where they made the homemade chocolates and all of that. We were just kind of kept rigidly and watched by security that we didn't nick anything. But it was great fun to do. And you asked if I could do a similar fantasy today, what would it be? Well, there's so many. I would probably want to ride a speedboat, James Bond style, down the Thames, but really, never slow down, just kind of ride it at high speed, break the sound barrier, that kind of thing. I'd love to do that. And I'd also like to shoot a video on the top of Tower Bridge, just standing there with drones, with cameras, just filming all the way way around. Probably one of the new songs Simon Darlow and I are up to. I think if I was ever given a fantasy to do again, I would base it in London, because London is so sci-fi at the moment. It looks so anotherworldish that that's the place to kind of shoot really strange videos, and that would probably be my idea, Julie, of a dream come true. So thank you for that question. So Tommy Bates, your question is utterly fabulous. Thank you so much. Do you consider your musical output over the years as a linear progression? Or do you tend to go off on musical tangents? Do you have a personal favourite style, musically, lyrically, stylistically? And what avenues currently most interest you? And who would you most like to work with? Let's work backwards here. I really want to work with Mark Almond, and we've been in touch this week, and we're talking about a project, and I'm getting very excited because doors are opening, and I just know Mark and I are the right mix. So very excited about that. Okay, Tommy, do I consider my work, my output over the years, a linear progression? No. I think the only linear thing is me, the artist. That said, Ophelia's Shadow was definitely linear to Sunday All Over the World, Kneeling at the Shrine, because they were both written at the same time. Prostitute was supposed to be completely standalone. I needed to walk away from everything I was related to so I could just be seen in a completely new light. And I think that worked really, really well. When you even look at Sheep Farming, Blue Meaning, Anthem, into Love is the Law, Changeling, none of those are linear, because the 80s was moving so fast stylistically. We were moving with that. And what I adore about Sheep Farming, which I've been working a lot on in the last weeks because it's about to be re-released, is the incredible, groundbreaking synthesizer sequences. They are so relevant today, and I really loved rediscovering those. And by the time we got to Love is the Law, which was after the Changeling, we were moving into a kind of rock era within music in the 80s. So I would say it was linear with the decade, but it wasn't linear as me, the artist. So we were moving in parallel with a decade. Definitely, yes. So favourite style of lyric and music and actual kind of visual style is probably what I'm doing today with Simon Darlow. I absolutely love it. Crimson Queen, and what we am writing now, which is Crimson Queen 2, name that at the moment, will be linear, because Simon is capable of being linear, and I do go off on musical tangents, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. So I think my favourite style is this kind of pop rock that allows everyone in. I'm really focused on joy at the moment, and wanting people to experience joy through music, so that music is escapism. And I don't find it hard to comment about worry, fear, anger. Those come to me really easily. But joy, I think, is helping the healing process and helping the world go back to normal again. So both Simon and I are looking at how we can address joy in a very intelligent way, but also that completely uplifts the whole audience at the same time. It's been quite challenging, and it's rather lovely and very exciting. So I think I've answered all your questions, Tommy, and I just absolutely loved what you asked me. Thank you so much. Brilliant. David Donatellis from Italy, your question is great. It's absolutely great, and thank you so much. I have been facing major creative issues as an amateur musician during lockdown. I really love the videos you make with Robert. Thank you, David. Where else can I look for missing inspiration? I bought a new kalimba That's really difficult to play, David. It's kind of limiting you, and I'm going to talk about this. I practice ukulele and drums, everything, but I always feel a lack of involvement. Big ciao from Italy. Okay, so David, I am going to start with, let's look at this. I'm going to put my glasses on because I really want to answer this intelligently for you. So I keep libraries. This library is my poetry library. I mean, it's stacked back and front. I cannot live without that library. Why? Because I think other artists, alive or dead, you can tap into their field of inspiration. Sylvia Plath, when I need something really deep, I need to find deep words, I look at Sylvia Plath and I find her. I don't necessarily go for her words, but I find her. I find the person. And that inspires me. Now, I always read autobiographies, always. I think down here are all my Leonard Cohens, my Bruce Springsteen. I like to draw. That helps me and inspires me. My hobby is designing jewelry. So this is all my jewelry history, but also, I mean, we've got about 10 libraries in here. I've got all my books on fantasy writing, from fairy tales, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, right through to modern writers of sci-fi and thrillers, because you find your inspiration in their inspiration. So very quickly, David, I'm also going to explain this. So, a good night's sleep for me is really important. Now, I know Kate Bush works through the night. When she's songwriting and recording, she prefers her voice at that time. The artist PJ Crook, who I collect, only paints at night, and she's prolific. Well, at night, my brain is mush. So I tend to get up at about 5:30 in the morning, and that's when I write the first thing that comes into my head, and it's always words. Always words. And sometimes, you know, chords can help you find it. At the moment, I'm in love with B7. I just absolutely love that chord. So, it's a game of hide and seek under the floorboards, a mountain peak, where the blame, I hear it breathe, catching the flame as we speak. So that gives me a chord progression, it gives me words, and I can then go to the man I trust more as a writer than anyone else, Simon Darlow. And I say to Simon, look, I've had this idea, Simon. What do you think? And normally, you know, I'd play something like that and he'd go, yeah, let's take it, let's do this. Sometimes he'll take one line and he'll go, right, I like that line, and we're going to move in a completely new direction. So another thing I do, David, which, you know, might interest you and it might free you up from your instruments, is, and Simon Darlow hates me doing this, GarageBand. Simon last week said, get rid of GarageBand, get rid of those loops. You can't use these loops. And I said, well, Simon, it's a way in. It's a creative way in. So I go into GarageBand and I cut and paste loops. So that's an 80s classic synth. So, and it's silly, but that gives me the rhythm I need to write a poem to. And I won't finish a song like this unless I was working for the Humans, because the Humans I did a lot of cut and paste with. And then I took it to both Bill and Wong, and then they just moved it into their hands and into the instrument. You know, that tells me so much about what a song could be. Out of the car and onto the street, we're gonna meet. You know, it's just, it tells you, it informs you. My coffee today, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained. These things inform you. So I would say, Free yourself up from the kalimba, get GarageBand, cut and paste, see what you come up with. It will allow you to play along with and to improvise to, and hopefully it will free up your inspiration. And find friends who can play. Playing with other people is how you become a really great musician. It's so important, so important. And David, thank you so much for that question. I loved answering it. Christine Guccherio, I think again this is from Italy. So thank you so much for your question. Are fairy tales and folklore something that inspires me as an artist? Yes. Absolutely. And if you had the choice of becoming a fantasy character or archetype, what type would you choose? And what magical power would you like to have? So talking about my book libraries again, Christine, I have a whole library on fairy folklore. And my favouriteest folklore is Estonian fairy folklore, because it's just surreal. Like Russian fairy folklore, it's completely surreal. It's not saccharine, it's not safe and cozy. It also, I think, avoids kind of the cliches of the wicked stepmother and the lost princess. It avoids those cliches. It's more surreal. And this is the Turnip Princess and Other Newly Discovered Fairy Tales. It's a fabulous book. I absolutely adore it. And this also answers David's question as well, is that, you know, this is a great source of inspiration because it breaks the barrier between normality and non-normality. And I think sometimes the best songs make no sense. So I love it. I love it. So you also asked me, Christine, if I was to be a fantasy character, what would I like to be, or what archetype would I like to be? Well, I've always believed in the fairy, as in the old spelling of those creatures that are quite dangerous, that kind of steal human beings and have changelings and, you know, take people away. I like all of that, but I'm not sure I want to live in their world. So I'm going to give you an answer that is slightly off key, off center. I believe in angels, and I believe angels are eternal. They can't change, and they are envious of us because we can change who we are. Okay, we're mere mortals, but we're not fixed. So I find the idea of an angel very exciting. Therefore, that angel has got to get it right. And I've always felt that Raphael is probably one of the nicest and bestest angels you could be. I certainly wouldn't go near Azrael. And also, I like the idea of the Greys. Now, the Greys are considered to be ancient life forms that protect the planet. They're also believed to be aliens. I'm not sure that they are. I think they just live in a different parallel world. And I've always liked the idea of Greys as our friends rather than our invaders, because often people who've had alien abduction talk about Greys. Well, the Greys I'm talking about are gardeners. They're known as the gardeners, the protectors. So one of those, and thank you for that question. You've allowed me to really, go off on one. That's so great. Thank you, Christine. Adrian Bishop, is there an acting part you would love to play? Yeah. I mean, Lady M in the Scottish play. I have often thought, what would I do if I was offered that part? Because it is a part that's known to make both actors, Lord M and Lady M, absolutely crack under the pressure of playing it. And I think I would feel quite stressed about it, but I would still love the challenge of doing it. And I would very much want to play her with the physical disability I was born with, which I've, now cured and I'm over. I'm going to use the word cured, but physio and surgery has corrected it. And so that would be someone with a gait. Normally Richard III's played with a gait, and a gait means a specific way of walking. And I would want her to feel no confidence in her physical attraction whatsoever. So it makes her even more desperate and even more greedy, and because she lives in a time where beauty is so defined, and I really am interested in the time it's set in, where beauty is so defined and any form of displacement within that ideal of beauty is seen as a threat. So I would find that really, really interesting to do. Thank you for that question. So Philip Halcrow, if you had the chance to live your life again, would you do it all over again the same, or would you change things? There'd be so much I'd insist on, Philip. As a child, I'd insist on going to stage school. I'd insist on learning music theory, piano, dance. You see, all of these things I couldn't do till I could earn a living at the age of 14, when I could work in a shop and earn some money and pay for my classes. I was so meant to be at stage school, and it would have done me a lot of good. I'd have read the classics when I was young. And I would have worked with people who could work in turn with me, improvise with musicians, which is so important, and learn about playwriting, story writing, everything creative. If I could go back to being 10 years old, I'd have said stage school now. I think I'd have had a happier and more confident adulthood. Thank you for that question. Matthew Phillips, you say that Druids off the Changeling is your all-time favourite track. Thank you so much for that. You love the surreal and highly visual nature of the song. Can you give us a little background on your inspiration on this track? Well, many of you might know that over my 40-year career, I've been lined up to play Boadicea many times in movies and on stage. And currently there is a film being lined up where I won't be playing Boadicea, but I will be playing the wise woman she consults with. Hopefully that will all get off the ground soon. These projects, they go on and on and on, and COVID doesn't help. But anyway, getting back to your question, Matthew, when I was studying Boadicea, and Boadicea, you've got to remember, all we know about her is what's called the burnt layer at Colchester in London. They are layers under the ground, geographically, that show that both Colchester and London burnt at the time this warrior queen existed. And that's really the only proof we have of her. So I also studied how the Druids behaved during this time, because apparently Boadicea fought a war that was so brutal and killed so many that her brutality took the Roman army by surprise. And the Druids, who many of us, I do think, have a romantic vision of as kind of people that practice earth magic and are gentle, nature-loving creatures, well, they could fight like demons. And what they used to do was strip off naked. They would paint themselves completely blue with a liquid called woad, blue woad, and they would have belts around their waist with the severed heads of their enemies on. And they would charge the Romans, and they would do hand-to-hand combat. They were terrifying. So when I talk about the Druids in the song of the Changeling and the shock troops, they were known as the shock troops. They deliberately shocked their enemy and terrified their enemy. And this is why the imagery of that song is so powerful. And I hope that one day I get to be in a film about it, because I just think no one's really done it yet. I mean, even in Braveheart, they were covered up. But these people, and I believe they were men and women, fought naked. They were like wild demons, and it's such a wonderful image. It's really worth looking up. Thank you for that question, Matthew. Pete McGovern, you've asked, I've always regarded The Changeling as a concept album. It was my introduction to your music, and it's my favourite album of yours. Do you intend it to did I intend it to have a central theme to being a project? I don't think there was a central theme to it other than the place I was at as a person at the time. And coming out of 1981 and the huge commercial success of Anthem and the joy of making Anthem, I was emotionally exhausted. And those who know my work know that I do go off on tangents. I don't like repeating myself and my work that much. So the Changeling, I would say that the common theme within the Changeling was dislocation. I felt very dislocated from myself. There was abandonment. I was experiencing abandonment while we were making it. It wasn't a particularly happy album to make. I didn't feel supported during the making of it, but I did come together with Simon Darlow again on those sessions, which was an absolute godsend. And I felt slightly dispossessed. And what I mean by that was I just felt that everyone that I needed around me was no longer there. Nigel Glocker left the band to join Saxon. And even though the wonderful, wonderful Simon Phillips came on board, I was missing my friend. Nigel was hard to replace emotionally. So it was very, very hard for me, that album. But I think in hindsight, and with the 30 odd years, 35 years in between, I think it's a very special album. I think it's really great. Might not have been, all the fun of the fair to make, but now it's fabulous. So thank you very much, Pete, for that question. Now, all of you, thank you so much for your questions. My goodness, they've excelled this week. It's been wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we're going to go out on a wonderful Trading Boundaries version of The Angel and Me. Oh, makes my hair stand on end. It's so beautiful. Stay safe, everyone. Send in your questions for next week. I love talking to you this way. It's great. And thank you for allowing me to express myself. Stay safe. Lots of love from Toyah. Bye for now.
I knock the telephone from the table, and the room starts to purr. I smash the contents from a drawer. A photo midair stops to twirl. It falls. Why do you always cry when you come to see me? I always die to see you smile. You see, I have a secret. That's why I always smile. Yes, I know the window's dirty, and I've noticed all the plants are dead. Why don't you ever hear a single word I say? I've been trying to tell you, she's on her way. Angel, I want to introduce you to someone you've never met before. As you can see, she's very special to me. She stretches the skin of her silvery wings, puts her hands through the bars to me. She steps through the wall as if it's a door, and I rise from the floor as I did before. I knock the phone from the table and the room starts purring. Smash the contents from a drawer and a photo starts twirling. It's the angel. It's the angel. It's the angel. myself free. It's the angel and me, and me. Oh, I run in the wind, I run to the river, there's blood on me. It's your memory. It's the smile of, it's the smile of, it's the smile of insanity. You fall to the floor.